double check, make sure the audio part is getting recorded, restart the browser. So everything is now back to where it was. And then we'll go ahead and start the Android Studio again. Android Studio, Win Studio.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so we're good. All right. There we go. We'll close this. Close project. Go back to the project that is in the test folder, because that's where we were, and I want to double check and test to make sure that this is all working correctly. The rendering problem is missing a style. Is the correct theme chosen for this layout?
That's what I got right there.
Okay. So it failed to find style, text view style in current theme. Okay. So this didn't happen at home because I was using the same installation, just pointing to a different folder. The ID text view is not defined anywhere. Hard-coded string click me should be at string resource. So it's complaining about certain things. This one I know what it is. And those are linked problems. Okay, so how do I get this box to go away? There's no... There we go. Just went away. Okay. Alright, so we should still be able to launch the virtual machine. So we'll give it a try first.
In that code, the X refers to the button, it's a reference to the button. In that parameter, that click handler method.
Yes, the X refers to the source, okay, which component was the source of the click event.
So if we want to change any features on the button, we just modify the X?
Yes, you can say X dot something, but it only knows that X is a view, not necessarily as a button. So if you want to do something to a button, you will have to downcast it to a button first.
Okay.
Alright, the emulator is back up, and it has a rendering problem with the previewer, but I don't think that should affect how the emulator is working, but it's having a problem with the emulator again. Okay, so we are going to check this, figure out why this is not working. Okay, so we have some kind of issue going on again. Okay, so at least we got out of that. Okay, so we don't have any actual big problem. And my drive is still working.
What's the emulator doing? Locked up or again?
Yeah, I think the emulator just locked up, but that's an artifact of the drive itself. So something was actually causing this problem. So there's a DMA issue, direct memory access issue, and that's a low-level driver issue with my external USB thumb drive. I certainly hope it's not dying, because this is a sign that my external hard drive is dying. So we'll see if we can kind of cripple our way through today's lecture. Just kind of hoping that it will still be okay. All right. Okay, so getting back to where what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so let's go back to here. So this time I'm going to try the other one, which is my application inside so I don't have to deal with the other issues. I don't think the emulator will work this time either, because I think there's some issue with the external hard drive. All right, so let's see. We go to My Applications, go to App, go to Source, Main, go to Java. Okay, and go to Main Activity. This is the main activity. When we go to the Layout, which is Main Resource Layout, this one does not have a button yet. Okay, so let me zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better of the current design of this view. This is the default, simple application, which simply has a label called Hello World. Well, Hello World, a label like this is called a text view. Okay, so when you click it and you can look at the properties, it's basically a text view. We know it's a text view because it identifies itself as a text view. So the question is, what can we do with a text view? Well, we know a text view is a subclass of a view, so we can check out what a view can do first, and then we can then say, oh, text views can do that, and then some more. Okay. So now we can use a browser to look up, what a view class in Android can do. There we go. And most people will think, well, how much can a view do, because it's supposed to be just something static on the screen. But if you look at the thumbnail of this page, you can kind of tell that it's a really, really long page. It can do a lot. Okay, even as a view, it can do a lot. So specifically in today's lecture, we want to specify event handlers or event listeners. An event listener is basically an event handler. It's just that the terminology has changed a little bit over time. In the past, when we specify a subroutine to handle something, it's called a handler. These days, it's called a listener because you can listen to something and not to do anything about it. So a handler is suggesting something that's active, you're doing something about it. But a listener is just saying, okay, call me when this happens, but I may choose to do nothing. Okay, so we can do something like this. We can search in the browser itself to find event listener. Okay, and there's one match, so we'll go ahead and go for that match. And it is okay. So we'll find onClick either. We'll find onClick first. So here's onClick. It's an interface. We'll explain what an interface is first. This is the property. You can actually set up the property of onClick with just a view. This is not even a button, but it actually has an onClick property, which is not reflected in here, because when you look at it here, unless you turn on all the properties, it does not specify that you can do something about clicking just a label. Okay, because most people would not do that, but in reality, you can click on the label. Switching back to the website, we go to here, and I'm going to move on to the one where we can set the onClick listener. This is the one that I want to specify or I want to look at. Okay, zoom in a little bit more. Okay, it dropped all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to search for that again. It's set onClick. It doesn't like it zoomed out this far. guess. There we go. So this particular method of a view, remember, everything inherits from a view. A button is a view. A text view is a view. So all of those subclasses automatically inherit this particular method, which is set on click listener. So when we click on this link, it goes to the explanation of set on click listener, and all it says is it registers a callback to be invoked when this view is clicked. If this view is not clickable, it becomes clickable. So that means, if by default there's no click listener associated with that object, once you attach a click listener to that object, then you can actually quote unquote click it. It will understand what a click is. Even though graphically or visually it does not give you the effect of a button, which has two states, because it has the release state and the press state, but nonetheless, the event itself will be registered. Yep?
You say this was a interface?
Mm-hmm.
Just the interface, so it's not actually defined in the parent? I mean, it's defined, but it's not actually.
Well, it is, the type is an interface. So view.onClickListener, the type of the parameter, this guy here, is actually an interface. It's not a class, it's an interface in Java. Okay, so that's a good observation. Yep.
So with that, would you put the whatever you want to make clickable as part of that?
As part of the argument?
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly. So this is where the philosophical discussion between what is an abstract class in C++ and why do we need multiple inheritance in C++ as opposed to the use of interface of Java begins. Because that, the syntax of the two languages are pretty much the same. Okay, so some people can look at Java and go, well, we don't need to delete anything. And there's no pointers, right, in C++. But in Java, we have, the other way around. In C++, you have pointers. You can you can delete, so you have to kind of manage your own objects. But in Java, it is automatically managed by automated garbage collection. You don't have pointers, you have references instead. So those are fairly minor differences, not very conceptual differences. This is a conceptual difference, okay? Okay, so so if you click on this link, I'm going to open a new tab just so that we don't lose this particular browser view. It says this is a public static interface view.onClickListener, and the only thing that it specifies is anything that can fit into this quote-unquote interface has to implement onClick. In other words, the best way I can put this is an interface is a filter. Okay, has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with inheritance. Has nothing to do with classes, has nothing to do with inheritance. It basically is a filter. It's basically saying, in this case, okay, if I go back to the other slide, it's basically saying, whatever you pass as an argument when you call set on click listener, whatever you're passing needs to have an on click method that returns void and takes on a parameter that is view. That's all it's saying. Can it have 20 gazillion other things they can do? Sure, not a problem. Okay, it's basically just specifying the minimum requirement of what can be passed as an argument when you call this subroutine. Now, the best part about an interface is it doesn't mess up your inheritance hierarchy. Because now whatever you're passing does not have to be a subclass of whatever. It can be just any object of any class as long as it has a method called onClick that returns a void and it takes on a parameter that is of type view. It's good. Yep.
And you get multiple interfaces, right?
Say that one more time.
They can inherit from multiple interfaces, basically. You're not.
Interfaces cannot inherit, so they are not a hierarchy.
The other way around. When you put an interface onto an object, you put multiple interfaces where you cannot put multiple inheritance.
In Java, there is no multiple inheritance.
Okay, right.
So each class can only inherit from, at the most, one other class.
But interface is not restricted that way, are they?
Interfaces do not inherit. So there's no inheritance hierarchy when you're talking about interfaces.
He's asking how many interfaces can you have on a class?
As many as you need. Because it's just a filter.
Right, so you can have multiple filters.
You can have multiple filters. You can pass the same object as something, as different interfaces. As long as the object meets the requirements of the interface, it can be passed. And that's why I look at interface as a filter, as a minimum requirement of, okay, can you do this? I don't really care who is your superclass or your inheritance in a hierarchy. My only question is, can you do onClick? If the answer is yes, I can do onClick, sure, you can pass as an argument. Okay. All right, so given this, conceptual view, so next thing we want to do is to, well, let's make this, text view act as a button so we can click it and do something, right? So we still need an ID here because otherwise I cannot get back to the object representing the label itself. So I still need an ID for that purpose. So we'll just call this, $label. Okay, the label is the ID, okay, of the only thing of this particular application. Okay, so that's it. We'll go back to the source code. Go back to source. Go to main. Go to Java, and look at main activity again. Okay. So we still have to attach the code to attach a listener over here. But before we do that, okay, I'm going to define a nested class definition here. So you can do this in Java. Oh, somehow it doesn't like the way I do the curly braces. It has to do with how I personally do the curly braces, because I like to say class, enter, open curly brace, enter, close curly brace, and then go back to the previous line, because I'm used to less intelligent editors. And Android Studio, which inherits this from Eclipse, is really smart. So once it understands your class open curly brace, it fills in the close curly brace for you. So so that's why sometimes when I use this tool, I go like, oh, okay. Okay, so we have to give the class a name. If you're defining a class like this, you have to give it a name. So we'll call that click. Just to use camel case the correct way, it has to start with uppercase. Handler. Okay, there we go. So click handler is the name of the class of the object that deals with the click. The only requirement is it has to have a method called onClick, returning, taking the argument of a view, and then the inside here can be anything. Now, when you see this red symbol, it simply means that you cannot resolve the view thing, and it automatically makes a suggestion. It starts with a question mark and say, did you mean android.view.uppercase view? If that is the case, press Alt-Enter, and it will automatically import that particular package. So I press Alt-Enter. Alt-Enter. Okay, something has gone wrong with the hard drive again, so I think we might have okay. As I suspected, something is not right with my hard drive. Error transfer event, I think it's the same kind of problem. I don't know why it's doing this. I was using this drive just last night without any problems, and today it's having, it's good again. It could be just the cable, because it's a really short cable and I'm putting a lot of strain on the short cable. So let's just hope it's a cable issue, because I can replace the cable inexpensively. All right, so when we expand import. Now it also imports Android.view.view, which is, because of the Alt-Enter. I need to make sure that the recorder is still going. Yep, the recorder is still going, which is kind of fascinating. All right, so.
You have the volume on too?
Hmm?
And the volume?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's still going. Yep. But there are two. Oh, there are two instances here because the virtual machine, the Android virtual machine, is also getting the same source. Because the virtual machine is still running, the Android virtual device, the AVD, is still running. So if I run a recorder on the emulated Android device, it will be recording the same thing that I'm recording with my recorder right now. So that will be kind of interesting. Okay. So, yep.
You haven't put the filter in that yet, right?
I haven't.
Why do you have the on-click? You haven't done that.
Oh, this class, at this point, the class click handler is just a class with a method called onClick.
Okay.
And nothing else. Okay. So I can specify any code here because I can specify this kind of same code that we talked about before, and this time I can just do everything on a single line because I'm pretty sure that it is a text view, right? So we'll go ahead and specify that code and just say, okay, we'll downcast it to text view. And like that. It automatically imports text view from the packages. And it's going to be find view by ID. And then the ID is going to be r.id. In this case, the label. We just added the label earlier. And then we can use extra parentheses to make sure that we got the grouping right. So we group all of this stuff here, which is by now a text view object. And then we can say, oh, since you are a text view object, we can do one thing. We can set text. We can change the text of this thing to something else. And this is the hello world one, so we'll change it to goodbye world. Okay, there we go. So when you click on the label itself, it will change the text on the label. That's the expected behavior. Okay. We just have one problem now. There's no direct linkage between this class with the label that we're dealing with. So you can click on the label all day long, but this code doesn't get executed. So we're still lacking something.
Because you're not calling the click handler.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now we have to set it up, and you have to set it up here because this is your only chance of setting up something when your activity is created. Okay, since we have no other way, no other event that can trigger the execution of our code, this is the only spot you can specify, oh, by the way, this is your click event listener. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do it over here. Oh, I apologize for that. Let me turn it off. I forgot to set up my schedule for all my classes. I set up my phone so that whenever I'm in an appointment, it will silence itself. But since I forgot to, I have not yet, programmed in all my classes as in the schedule, so it doesn't silence itself automatically. So I have to do it manually for now. This is one of the best upgrades as far as new versions of Android is concerned. It is one of the best features because before you can do it using some external app and say that if in the calendar I have an appointment and I mark myself as not available, turn off the ringing, turn off all the sounds. But now it is built into Android itself.
Is that your Google Calendar?
Yeah, that's a Google Calendar. I think you can choose which Google Calendar as well,
Oh, okay.
or which calendars that you want to
gotta
use.
Mark yourself as unavailable.
Yeah. So it will automatically put itself into silence mode. So the only alarms, if you set up your alarm, those will still go off. But incoming calls, text messages, email, those will not notify. It won't even buzz you.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I'm not sure which version of Android started with that feature, but I'm running CyanogenMod, which is now Lineage OS, and so basically people take older devices like the Nexus 5, and they recompile Android for these older devices, which is great because now I can use my Nexus 5 for a few more years, or at least a few more months, unless I drop it again, throw it into the river or something, then I have to upgrade.
You need a semicolon, by the way. I think that's
Huh? Semicolon?
red squiggly line and goodbye world.
Oh, right there. Thank you. All right. So here we have find view by ID. And it's going to be the same ID because we only got one thing in this entire screen. So it's going to be r.id.the label. Okay. Assuming this is successful, we can now say set on click listener, which is this guy here. And in it, we can now pass the object of that nested class definition. So new click handler. My hard drive is again, not connecting. I can see it, flashing really rapidly, which is not a good sign. Anything that flashes rapidly is not a good sign.
It's not full? It's not like full?
No, if it's full, it's a software issue. The drive itself won't flash, but the drive itself is flashing right now, so it's not a good sign. And it stopped flashing, and it's good now. Okay, new click. Okay, obviously typing issues. New click handler. There we go. Okay. So this code should work, right? Because we have a class that defines a single method, which is onClick. It returns a void, and it takes on a parameter of the type view, which meets the requirement of the interface that we talked about earlier. Because the interface that we talked about earlier, let me switch back to the browser to that page. This basically says, this particular interface only has one. Not this page, but this one. This interface has one requirement. It needs to have the implementation of onClick. Okay, and that meets that requirement. So let's go ahead and test this code.
Why do you have a red squiggly line on the last
Describe the interface.
click in?
Oh, we need that. Nope.
That's the instance we created. Doesn't class click handler have to implement the view?
Oh, it has to specify that. Yep, there we go. Thank you. Implements. I can't remember the name. It's view dot on click listener. There we go. There we go. So with that, okay, on click view flashes with. Yep. There we go. Just print. Go. All right. There we go. Okay. So now we can run this code. Yep, my drive is flashing rapidly again.
what does the implements mean?
It links a class definition to an interface.
Okay.
Basically, that's how you apply the filter.
Right, but my original impression was that you do not need to have implements, but apparently that is actually necessary.
So how did you connect the clicking of the text to the calling of the handler?
This call here, it sets up the click listener of the text, the label, to an object that has no particular name, but the object is of this class. And this class has an on-click method, and the on-click method is what specifies the action of what to do when it is clicked.
Okay, and that's in the creation of the app. It calls the
Right.
tells the label to call it.
Yep. Well, because in Java and also in Java for sure, you cannot pass the address of a subroutine. There's just no way to do it. So the trick is to encapsulate the subroutine into a class, and then you use an interface to specify the type of the parameter. So this way you can do quote unquote the same thing. You're basically quote unquote passing the address of a subroutine. But it's actually an object with an implementation of a method that you need to use. One or more methods.
Okay.
All right, so let's go here and click on, yep, there we go. I just clicked the text label, and now it says goodbye world. Okay, so are there any questions about this part? Now, what if I want to change this program so that every time I click it, it will alternate between hello world and goodbye world?
Should only have to choose the handler.
Well, there are several ways to do it. One is to check what the label is at this point, and then say, okay, if it is saying goodbye world, then we will change it to hello world. If it's hello world, we'll change it to goodbye world. That's one way to do it. The second way is to dynamically change the listener so that it is always saying, oh, the other one. Now we switch to the other one. So we are dynamically changing the listener as the program executes.
You can also keep a global count.
Hmm?
You can keep a global count of how many times it's been oscillated, and then if it's odd,
You can do that as well, yes. You can do a global counter, you know, and you can mod that global counter by 2, so it's always alternating between 0 and 1. Okay, that's another way to do that. So there are many ways to do it, but one way is to keep changing the listener, because we can. Okay. All right. So yeah, when we click it these again, it doesn't seem to do anything because it's changing goodbye world to goodbye world, so it doesn't seem to do anything. So I'm gonna try this, okay? Because I'm gonna try to remove implements. Yep, it doesn't like that anymore because it has to implement. Darn it. Okay. All right. So Control Z, put it back in. Okay. But this is kind of redundant. Okay, we got 5 minutes left, but I'm going to make this one more change to this program. The whole class, the embedded class called click handler, only serves one purpose, which is to provide a class from which you create an object. Then you can pass that object in to set on click listener right here. Otherwise, this class has no other use whatsoever. Okay? So one thing you can do in Java, which I think is really kind of cool, is you can create anonymous classes. An anonymous class looks like this. Okay, so instead of doing this, we can now. I'm keeping this here just so that I can refer to the code. We can do it. Then we can specify the code. So instead of doing this, you can say new on click listener, and then what you do is you specify the code here. Okay, maybe I need to do dot. Go. Class anonymous class derived from on-click listener must either be declared abstract or
Is
implement.
there a capital I right there?
Sorry?
Capital I listed?
Capital.
I can't tell it from here. You can spell it wrong.
Oh, it's just complaining that I'm lacking the on-click method because it's empty at this point. It's being too smart, too fast. Okay, so what I can do here is I can now repeat the same definition here. So I just copy and paste these two lines. Okay, go from the very beginning of this line. Okay. Sometimes using the keyboard is better. Have you guys seen that poster right outside of Professor Lever's office with a cat inside a no, this is the one with a cat face, a big cat face. And it says, you know, there's a cat. It says, got mice? No? You haven't seen that one? So the top says, you know, got mice, and then there's a big picture of a cat. And then the bottom part says, you know, real programmers use the keyboard. Okay, you know, bad joke. Okay, but this is it, okay? You know, so you can create what we call an anonymous class by using this method. So I'm going to break this down a little bit just so that we can see which component is which component. So the new part is just saying, okay, we need a new instance of something, or we are creating an object. But what class is this object? We are not using any named class. So we are using this here, which is the name of the interface, to basically say, okay, we are creating something to satisfy a particular interface, to implement a particular interface. Okay, so what class are we talking about? Well, we don't have an exact class to do it, but here's the impromptu, you know, definition of a class that will fit this requirement. So we are creating a class on the